Hey, it's Mazzy here, and let's talk cinema. Let's talk soundtracks. Let's talk the motion picture. This is actually a contest entry for someone who I've just met, a fellow Launceman from Los Angeles who is in the movie business. Showtime, Frame. Every time I see Steven Spielberg, I think he walks around like this. Not like me seeing him, but you always see him doing the Frame thing. Robert from The Waxed. His channel is The Waxed. So there's a link below. Please subscribe. He has great content. He's new to the vinyl community. He's from Santa Monica, or he lives in Santa Monica now. I think he's from back east. Like they're all from back east. All the Jews in Hollywood are from somewhere else and they come to Hollywood. So takes one to know one. Not that I'm in the film business, but I'm a big movie fan. I've talked about and showcased soundtracks in cinema before. I do a little series with Vinyl Richie occasionally, Dick and Norm's movie picks. And I just love this stuff. And I was fortunate enough to grow up in San Francisco, a city that had a lot of independent cinemas and screens. So I was entrenched in foreign films and independent films and everything. And amongst my favorite films, I remember, because it was a perfect age, 15, 16, 17 years old, was the American cinema from like 1969 to 72, 73. There was that sort of renegade independent, going away from the movie, the big studio system like Easy Rider and so on. So I'm not going to entrench in that now. Robert has some simple questions. Show 3 soundtracks or 3 songs that are on albums used in movies. There's another one of use a musician who doesn't play himself, but it acts in a movie, and some other kind of chazarai. I don't know. So I'm just ignoring you, Robert, and I'm gonna play the director that just wants to go on my own and change the script and just shoot whatever the hell I want to. So I'm doing it a little differently. I picked 5 basic films and with the soundtracks, and these are amongst my very favorite films. Now, they're not my all-time top 5 films, but they're amongst my favorite films where the soundtracks are so important and so a part of the movie. Now, of course, music is a part of every movie, and you can't imagine these without it. But to me, these are things that cross over into jazz and pop and in a different realm of how music is used, at least in parts, if not throughout the entire film. Just a little point of reference in terms of soundtracks and me getting involved and getting turned on a different style of music. The biggest soundtrack change in my life was in 1968, 2001: A Space Odyssey. I'm not showing it here because I've shown it so many times. In a way, it was introduction to me to classical music and out there classical music, aside from the Richard Strauss Blue Danube, the other Strauss, also Sprach Zarathustra and the Ligeti stuff, and that movie changed everything for me cinematically. It went from here to there, and you will know what I'm talking about. Was that CinemaScope or Kubrick's scope? Obviously, Stanley Kubrick was a big influence on me personally. So let's just get right into it, because I don't want to go on and on. I don't want to make this the Michael Cimino cut of Heaven's Gate. So one of my all-time favorite movies, and I turn people onto this film and they either love it or they just think it's too artsy, cerebral, and what the F is this about? And that is Michelangelo's Antonioni's Blow Up from 1966. I've seen this movie at least 50 times, and I love this movie. And it's kind of like early swing in London. It takes place in 1966. It is centers around a photographer, and the photographer is played by David Hemmings, and it's based loosely on David Bailey, who was a British, I think he's still alive actually, a British fashion iconic portrait photographer. great photographer. Beatle Connection, he photographed the Beatles at least once, probably several times. And there's also great small bits. Jane Birkin, the Yeye girl Jane Birkin, who was married to Serge Gainsbourg later, is in it, plays one of the models in it. It's just a beautiful, beautiful film. The soundtrack is done by Herbie Hancock. The soundtrack's fantastic. And there's a great scene with the Yardbirds playing on stage in a club, and they're actually playing live. And it's, I think Train Kept a Rollin', I think that's the song they play. Great scene, little cerebral. There's a film years later called Blow Out with John Travolta that is loosely based on Blow Up. That is about an audio engineer who hears something, records something accidentally, and puts it together and edits it and to solve a crime. And in Blow Up, there's a similar whole subplot in here where he photographs something and blows up the negatives and blows it up and sees what may be a murder, maybe a dead body. So Blow Up, 1966, Michelangelo Antonioni, really great, Swingin' London from the Italian director. An album and a record and a movie that changed it all was Easy Rider. Easy Rider. Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper's film, directed by Dennis Hopper, a road picture, and one of the first films, as far as I know, that had a soundtrack that was made for it, that was a set of songs in the pop realm. Obviously, there were, Help and A Hard Day's Night and the pop music things, and there were other types of things, but this was a huge, huge movie. Against the studio system, it really broke Jack Nicholson, who won a supporting actor award for his role in this. I think, obviously, this is a movie of its time. Was it 1969, I believe? But it's a great movie of a road picture of the time. Psychedelic, stoner movie, but with great music, of course, a couple of Steppenwolf songs. It has The Pusher, Born to Be Wild. It has The Weight. In the movie, The Weight by the band is in it. And unfortunately, because of rights and situations, and I don't remember all the details, the version of The Weight here is by a band called Smith on the soundtrack. Holy Modal Rounders, Don't Bogart Me, The Fraternity of Man is on here. Obviously, If 6 Was 9 by Hendrix, and a couple of Roger McGuinn songs. Dylan was asked to do a song for it, and Dylan suggested they use Roger McGuinn from the Byrds, who, Ballad of Easy Rider is a beautiful, beautiful song. It kind of gave the Byrds in 1969 another little lift somewhat, but this is a really important film for me, and the soundtrack is just wonderful. So, a cult film that's amongst my favorite films, filmed in and around the San Francisco Bay Area, and that is Hal Ashby's Harold and Maude. Bud Cort and Ruth Gordon, unlikely couple, dark comedy, black comedy, such a great film, wonderful film. And of course, the music used throughout it was Cat Stevens. Now, interesting note, when this movie came out for several years, people were requesting a soundtrack. I worked in record stores, and all through the early 70s, like from 73 to, on for years, people would come in looking for the soundtrack to Harold and Maude, and they never released a soundtrack. Up until the iTunes days, there was a soundtrack download, and I believe actually this coming record store day, they're gonna do a soundtrack to this, but there was never official LP physical soundtrack. As far as I know, maybe in Europe there was something later, but at the time. But of course, a lot of songs from T for the Tillerman, Cat Stevens, as well as some other songs that were on these albums and that turned up in different areas and comps. But Cat Stevens, it's a really good part of the music, and it brings a levity or a lightness to the darkness of this. Although it's not a dark film by any means, but the subject matter is a little macabre and really interesting love affair between a young man and like a 85-year-old woman, and it's done beautifully. Harold and Maude, Hal Ashby. I'm a fan of Francis Coppola. Everyone loves The Godfather and whatever you want to say about the Godfather trilogy and Apocalypse Now. Great movies. But one of my favorite Coppola movies is Rumblefish. And It's shot 99.9999% in black and white. There's just a couple spots towards the end in color. And this is one of two movies he did back-to-back small films after the Apocalypse Now craziness. And by, is it S.E. Hinton, I believe, who wrote these books. It was Rumblefish and Outsiders, and they're basically stories based on these kids growing up in Oklahoma. I think it's Oklahoma. This is my favorite of the two. They're both great. This has obviously a young Mac Dillon, a young Diane Lane. Dennis Hopper is in it. Mickey Rourke is in it as Motorcycle Boy. Young Lawrence Fishburne is in it. So a lot of the people of the Coppola circle there somewhat. Very artsy, just a really great mood piece, and black and white shadows and angles, and what's great about it is the soundtrack. The soundtrack is a very percussive soundtrack by Stuart Copeland, the drummer of the Police. This is one of my all-time favorite soundtracks. The score of this is great, and it's a big part. It makes it like it adds another level. It's a character in the movie because it's sort of these angular, percussive things. And the title track, Don't Box Me In, is a song on here. I think it's co-written by Copeland and Stan Ridgway. Stan Ridgway from Wall of Voodoo sings it. It's such a great, great track. The rest of this is instrumental, and it's really, really a good record. Amazing soundtrack, kind of jazzy percussiveness, avant-garde to a point, but an incredible movie. You don't need to see both movies, The Outsiders and Rumblefish. I think this is the artsier one. That's why I prefer it, because I really like that rich black and white cinema stuff. Just great. The fight scene under the bridge, not the bridge, but in the cement area, is just like, looks like it's under a freeway or near railroad tracks and things. It's just incredible. It's like a ballet. Obviously, it's choreographed, like maybe harking back to West Side Story. Really great, great. Another all-time favorite film of mine. You know, I'm partial to black and white cinema. Wings of Desire is Wim Wenders' film with Bruno Ganz. If you don't know who Bruno Ganz is, if you know all those Adolf Hitler memes or all of YouTube Adolf Hitler stories in the bunker where everyone changed the storyline and the subtitles, Hitler, you know, gets pissed off at the vinyl community because there's too many tags, or Hitler laughs at, well, I won't get political here, I almost did. That's Bruno Ganz. He played Hitler in that film. But Columbo, Peter Falk plays himself in here. It's about angels. It's shot in Berlin. It's gorgeous. The soundtrack is very classical, string quartet based, and really, really good. There are trapeze sections. There are sort of circus carnival, but it's about these angels wanting to become human or following the humans. It's a surreal film, and it's a beautiful film. There was a terrible remake, in my opinion, with Meg Ryan and Nicolas Cage and City of Angels, or what, I don't know what it's called. I don't give a crap. Also on here, there's a great club scene, and Nick Cage and the Bad Seeds play in it. So that's probably one of the early introductions I had to Nick Cage. Of course, I meant Nick Cave, not Nick Cage in this. God, get your act together, Mazzy. Stop tripping over your lips. There was it Far Away So Close, somewhat of a sequel that isn't as successful. I think U2 played some music in it, but I absolutely love this film. It's surreal. It's in German and English at different parts of it, and it's just a wild, wild film, but really beautiful and really soothing. So Wings of Desire, Wim Wenders. And lastly, I'm going to show a film, but I'm going to actually answer one of your questions, Robert. So finally, right? A musician who's in a film not playing himself. And that is this gentleman here. You've heard of The Animals, right? House of the Rising Sun. Well, he left after only a couple of records, unfortunately. That's Alan Price. He was the organ player, so that great organ bit on House of the Rising Sun, that's him. He's more of a, they were going in a different direction. He wanted to do his own thing, so he goes solo. So he is in a section, an ongoing section of this movie, Oh Lucky Man. Lindsay Anderson's movie with Malcolm McDowell. Those of you who don't know this, you'll know Malcolm McDowell from Clockwork Orange, the 71 Kubrick film. This is a great, surreal, dark comedy. Amazing film. Alan Price plays a musician. Now, he's not playing Alan Price, so maybe you will say, well, no, he's got to do something else. He's playing a musician in a band, and they pick up our hero on the road while I don't know if he's hitchhiking or something. So he's in a whole series and plays music in the band. What's interesting about this, too, the soundtrack is so amazing. This is the soundtrack to Lucky Man. It's a very short soundtrack. And of course, there's Alan Price again. He plays the character in the movie. He's one of the band members, the leader of the band, and he plays some of the songs that are on the soundtrack within the movie. So it's not throughout the movie, but I love the title track, Oh Lucky Man. It's just got a nice kind of low-key rock and roll, bossa nova. Just a really good record. This was on Warner Brothers Records, and Malcolm McDowell was also in Lindsay Anderson's movie If. If you ever get a chance to see that, it's a great film about an English boarding school with a tumultuous ending. So that's it. That's my cinema thing for you, Robert, for The Waxed. Link below. I just wanted to do a little section of records. Let me just close out showing rock and roll. I love all these rock and roll comps with different versions. Revolution. Film's not great. It's a movie of its time about, rock and roll and everything. But it's got Mother Earth, the song Revolution, Codyne, the Buffy St. Marie song by Quicksilver Messenger Service, Steve Miller Band, Super Bird, Euro Lady by Steve Miller. I remember all my friends got this because we liked these bands, and these songs were not on any other albums at the time. Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You by Quicksilver Messenger Service, the great folk song, which has been covered by rock and rollers and folk singers at the same time. Mercury Blues, Steve Miller Band, another Mother Earth song. 3 Mother Earth songs. So there you go. Tracy Nelson and Mother Earth, kind of a blues, country, folk, Bay Area, Northern California artist. Great soundtrack on United Artists. So that's it. Mazzy loves you. Robert, have a great weekend.